He keeps himself in trim by bending bars of iron. This bar is the genuine article which we tested before he began to play with it.
Beyond the bend, beyond the bend.
All right, JT, welcome to Beyond the Bend.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, I'll start this one the way I start them all. Take me back to the first time you saw someone bend a piece of steel.
That's a tough question because I'm not really sure when I saw somebody bend something. I read about it in Iron Mind. I read about John Brookfield bending stuff, bending a 60 penny nail. And I basically ventured out of powerlifting because I was I hesitate to say it, but I was kind of getting bored with it because it was too linear for me. It was too just like, you go right here and you do these things, like you have these lifts, you're either going to win or lose or place in this 1, 2, 3. And it just kind of became a thing that I wanted to see more about functional strength. I wanted to see more about the stuff that you used to hear about growing up, especially if you grew up in a town or a country where a country town where there were farmers or people that had all these tales of this guy doing this certain feat. You're like, how realistic is that? Did somebody really do that, or is somebody just making it up? So I'm not sure when I ever actually watched. I never watched anybody physically that I can remember bend anything. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is I started overstepping. If there was a hierarchy where I needed to start with asking questions, I didn't realize where that was because I bent a 60 penny nail, and I ended up figuring out on my own how to bend a red nail. And I started realizing the pressures I have to put on the ends of the pads and deal with the force on my index fingers as the fulcrum. But the first question I had messaged, I don't know if it was Pat Pavlidis or Dennis Roger, but one of them I started talking like, what am I doing with this horseshoe? And I think I got it to bend. And I started asking those guys, and they were helpful, but I think I was asking through some comments or something, and it's probably not the best way to go about it. But the first person I probably ever saw bend something it would have to be besides me, because I didn't see anybody bend anything.
Wow.
I read about it. I knew it was a thing, bending a 60 penny nail. And I've always been pretty skeptical. So I'm always like, that's such a loaded thing. How was it bent? Was it just like somebody took it with their bare hands and went like this? Did they use any kind of protection? Did they brace it? Are there a lot of different 60 penny nails? Or does the steel vary? This was way back when. And I don't know why I said I got into bending in 2012 a minute ago. I don't know what I was thinking. I bent the red nail, I think, in 2010. I got into bending in 2006, 7, but I didn't, I certified, I think, in 2010, but, and even that was coming off a hiatus of bending. I think a lot of people do. It's one of those things where you do it for a while and you kind of get out of it. And I don't know, but I guess I'm rambling at this point, but I think the answer would just be probably, I think one of the first people I actually watched bend something was probably just a random YouTube video, and it might have been Paul Knight. It might have been somebody like that on the internet, and that was going to be well after I had been bending for a while, or doing what I thought bending was. I had no instructors on what I was doing. I was figuring it out as I went.
Wow, that's cool. And what were you using for wraps on that first 60 pennies?
I had this, two 4x6 pieces of canvas that were cut out of a Klein bolt bag on a job site that somebody had thrown away. I was like, I was thinking to myself, this is probably cheating somehow. And I don't know to this day why I ended up, they're gone, but I used those things. And yeah, they were like that long, and and I mean, they just folded too. Like it was literally just protecting my hands at that point. And I remember feeling like, I remember starting to feel like a 60 penny. It didn't feel like I was bending it. It felt like I was folding it. Like I was coercing the nail to go like this because of the direction, like trying to deflect the angle up that way instead of just like bending it like you would like in a reverse bend.
Yeah.
And the day that clicked, I think it was the next day, I was like, man, I'm feeling really good. And I can't remember, I was working this job site. At the time I was doing a combination pipe welding. I'm a pipe welder by trade.
Yeah.
And the guy I was working with, he was interested, and he was like, so obviously he knew a little bit from what I told him. And I was like, I'm going to try that red nail again today. And remember that first time I was on a job site, I was on break on a job site when I bent my first red nail. It was like 2006 or 7. And, I got it. I was like, I thought I just unlocked some kind of like code or something. I was like, I just did it. I did it. I didn't have iron mine pads. Iron mine, like I've always done business with iron mine, but I'm just like, man, everything's so expensive. I'm very conservative about how I spend money there.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even know what a pair of iron mine pads look like.
Oh, wow.
So when I first bought those iron mine pads, even brand new, the very first thing I bent with iron mine pads was an iron mine red nail that they sent me also at the same time because I was out of them, and it was slightly easier in the iron mine pads than my little canvas Klein reps that I had.
Were you chalking them up or folding them in thirds, or you just freestyling
with the iron mine pads?
Yeah, or any of it.
My little canvas pads were just 4 by 6 inches, so they were like super small, but I tried to chalk them up and chalk my hands. But no, when I got the iron mine pads, I fold them into thirds. At that point, I had done enough research. I'm like, oh, this is what you do with these 12 by 12 squares. Like, I'm like,
yeah,
okay. So, and
there's still not a ton out about wrapping, man. So I started doing these bending tip videos where I have all my guests send in a little something, and we put it on the Instagram and the YouTube page. And thankfully, Delmar Carter, who I had on a couple weeks ago, just released the.
Did he show you how big his hands were?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so silly. It's so silly how big.
Other than that, I think someone direct messaged me the Tommy Jennings rapping video. Other than that, there's not a hell of a lot of information about rapping out there.
I'd be willing to venture that, and I could be completely wrong here, but I'd venture a guess that Tommy is probably, because I was a rapping Nazi about like telling people, I'm like, listen, just like anything else where you have a set parameters and what you're allowed to use, why not use as close to 100% of it as you can?
Yeah.
So if you're like hypothetically, if you were able to wrap those pads with like tuck them in, and you have like a drill, like some kind of like hydraulic basically to where the end result is like it's like a piece of plastic at the end.
Yeah.
If you're allowed to do that, do it. So basically what I'm getting at is like wrapping those pads. I'm like, you need to take as much time as you can and wrap them a specific way and as tight as you can every time you roll that up. You need to like get it on the edge, and you need to like tuck and wrap. Like when you hit it, you want it. I mean, people can say, we can get into like does it have leverage nonsense that people have argued for a long time. But it does, and you want to utilize as much as you can with what you're allotted. With what you're allowed to use, you want to use it to its fullest potential. And so I would tell people the first thing you need to do is decide whether you're ready to take the time to wrap each of these bars that you're trying for, and do it like you mean it, especially when you start getting the bars that you're certifying on, or back in the day when there was, or even now, like bars that were rated, and there's a limited amount. There's a very finite amount of these specifically rated bars. If you mess one up, or you have a bet, like you slip and you fall out of the groove or something, now you got another bar. Where are you gonna get another bar from? I've got some stories of some issues that have happened with that happening to me, and it was just like it put me in a bad place mentally that made me just kind of want to. That's why I kind of got out of bending for a while, a long time ago. So.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. So, but you're right. Yeah, there's not a lot of. I mean, not even just rapping, but good tutorials on how to really start out with like double overhand.
Yeah.
Like that's something. I mean, I feel like that might be the hardest one out of the three basic styles to explain to somebody. Because you can tell somebody like reverse bending is like hold that like this, hold it like this, and try to bend it. I mean, obviously it can be a little bit more technical than that, but that's pretty much what you're doing.
I think if you asked 100 people and you gave them a nail, like I don't know if one person would instinctually put it up here.
No, they wouldn't. And if I can tell you that even the people that I've told very, very specifically how to do it, it doesn't matter how much I try to tell them. I'll always tell them, like, listen, don't try to bend the nail up here. Try to put as much force as you can on the pads and use your fingers as a fulcrum. Like push in. They're like, push in. I'm like, don't try to bend. And still yet people will be like this.
Yeah.
They're trying to do this thing. I'm like, listen. And then I'll literally get behind them. I'm like pushing, and they're like, oh, I'll give them something really small and they're like, I'm like, there you go. You see that? That's yeah. And I think Nathan Hall, I've talked to Nate. Nathan and I have talked a lot over the past year or so. And I think he was telling me like him and his brothers are the ones that came up with that bending style. So this is coming from, he told me, I'm just repeating what he said. I believe him, so I don't feel bad by saying that in a forum. I mean, like public forum, but he said like, yeah, that was a style that we started, and I was like, that's pretty cool, man, because I always kind of wondered like, where did it come from? Like who decided, hey, this works pretty well? Because obviously bending a red nail reverse or even double underhand, it's a lot harder.
Oh yeah.
You can teach I've done this. You can teach a strong person to bend a red nail very quickly, double overhand style. You can't just explain to them how to reverse it.
Right.
You can't explain to them how to double underhand it.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. Yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to look into that further because I've wondered that too. It was like the first time you try that, especially like just getting the shoulder mobility to like open your chest up and get it to where it needs to be. It's the most awkward feeling thing.
I honestly attribute a lot of the jumps that I made to not understanding any of it, because I just kept going like, are there really people that are just this brutally strong, or am I missing something?
Yeah.
And it just kept me searching. And like I said, it was with a 60 penny nail that like one day, I had nobody showing me. And one day I probably went from that guy doing this nonsense, trying to bend it, to where I felt the ends of and it just collapsed. And I went, oh, I bet that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'd already been bending, like reverse bending. Like I probably got better at that. There was probably a point where I was really close to doing my first red nail reverse. I mean, I've done reverse since then and double underhand, but my reverse was probably as close as my double overhand at one point, because I just didn't understand the complexity of that technique.
Yeah.
Before I understood, grab it here, grab it there, bend as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Caveman style, right? So,
what's kind of interesting with that is so I've been putting out these sort of challenges to just just keep it interesting and have people do something they submitted. So this month is who's got the strongest kink, right? So it's a red nail or a bastard, wrap it up. Even double wraps are allowed, and one kink, boom, everything you got, and then put it on the protractor and see how many degrees it is. And so we have listeners in Germany and all over the place. And
Russia.
Yeah. the European guys don't mess with double overhand. They're all reverse over there for the most part.
That's because they're better than we are.
Yeah.
Those guys are they're not made of the same thing.
Oh,
They're
it's
just
nuts.
They're just different.
I don't know how in the loop you are with stuff that's getting done, but you know the dude from Noble Force in Russia, Bat Tibolov. He just barehanded a red nail, a double underhand.
Oh, really?
About 3 weeks ago or something like
That's
that.
nuts. That's awesome.
Insane.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something else about this this kind of thing, like doing like steel bending. I always felt getting into it like, was I joining a club of people that couldn't quite do something else, so they found something that was such a niche thing that they felt better about it because per capita they could be good at it, right? Or like you know, and I hesitate because sometimes I speak and I don't realize like maybe I don't want to offend anybody, but like maybe I'm one of those people too, because I look at what some people are capable of and I think, you know, like I've bent a lot of things that are very hard. But could somebody that's already like, for instance, a lot of people ask you this, like, do you think, like, what's a generic thing people say, like, what about, do you think Brian Shaw could? I'm like, yeah, if that was his goal, he'd probably make it really silly looking, yeah. So I kind of started thinking about that. I'm like, how genetically gifted are a lot of these people versus how much effort do you have to put into it? You know, like how much seat time do you really have to have? And again, to be completely honest, again, back in the day when I kind of just fell out of it, when I was at my peak, I was having some problems with one, like I was asking myself these questions and it was kind of I was taking the wind out of my own sails. I was wondering, like, I'd had some problems with some people on some forums and over some certifications on bars that you can't just keep buying and go, all right, send me another one, I'll do it again then. Well, we don't have any more. I'm like, of course you don't. Perfect. And but I started thinking, like, how interesting is it really? Like, am I really that? Even if what is more impressive, somebody that is genetically gifted or somebody that is at that same level and they have put in, like, they have just dedicated every ounce of their life to doing it? And like, what's more impressive? And I could tell you what's probably more impressive, obviously, is the person that's putting the time. But what do most people want to see? And do they care about those little things? You know, do they care about like the person that put in the time or the person that just show me what you can do? I want the biggest, the best, the fastest. And it's like, well, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. So I don't know. I fell into a spot where I kind of got out of it. I think that was about 2012 or so when I got out of it. That's what I was going to say earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that with everything, though, right? You know, there's always the freaks that like come in, and I mean, I've experienced it with grappling. So many people are like, oh, how does it feel to feel like you can do whatever, like take anyone in the room? And I was like, hey, guess what? You know,
you might be able to.
12 years on the mat has showed me there's some complete animals out there that come in with no training whatsoever and give me a goddamn good fight. So that's what it's taught me. There's a bunch of freaks in nature.
No, it is. It's very enlightening. It's very enlightening.
Yeah. It's and I think that just goes with anything, man. Like that, like shout out to Chuck and Canuck. He's in my what I'm calling my bending class. It's all the guys that started in 2020 in lockdown, right? And this dude Josh up in Canada, I should show you what he's bending, man. But he's an elite shot putter, and with 6 months or less, he bent like a Horito 8.8 bolt. Like he's bending insane stuff quick, you know. But he's also putting in the work too. It's just, I like to see it too, you know. Like if you see those people that are naturally gifted and strong, and then they start working on it too, that's when we'll see some really crazy stuff.
With that. that's where I was going, is like the taking it on my sales was, if I'm just good at it and I don't believe that I'm in a very high level genetically, maybe I'm genetically predisposed to an extent, but what about the people that are really already up there and they're like, I'm going to run with this? They're just going to make everything you do look very, very, like very basic. You know, they're going to make everything you do just seem like it was just a joke. And I wonder if there were 10 times the amount of people in like bending, would red nails be a thing of the past? Would people just like laugh at it? You know, and I think the honest
I would think so.
Yeah, they would.
I would think so. But I mean, again, you know, with any pursuit, like all you can really do, and it sounds so cliche, but it's like, it's so true, is like all you can do is try to be better than you were. Yeah, it's all an individual pursuit, you know, like it's
100%. No, I definitely agree with that. And I wouldn't want to discourage anyone, because, you know, having said that, it just, you're going to have to try harder. And that's good. Yeah, just, you know, keep putting up the best fight you can. Keep beating your own, like, PRs. That's why, like in powerlifting, you know, and a lot of other things, like you have a giant, either, like I remember starting out with chalkboards or dry erase board, and you just have so many different lifts and variations of lifts, whether you're doing a bench press with board presses or bands and everything in between. And you're just like going through and going, I'm going to beat that record today. I've got that lift I'm going to do. I just want to get one more rep or one more, whatever it is. Yeah, make your own goals, and then hopefully the amount of work you're able to put in will defeat, you know, maybe it'll make a mark on a greater plane than just your personal records. Maybe that will manifest into, maybe you just beat somebody in a competition, you know. So that's definitely good. You know, Grip had a lot of that. When Jed and I were up in Pennsylvania, when I was up there in the oil field, and when I finally actually met Jed, when I realized I was living 25 minutes away from him or something like that. And that's when we started going to, you know, a lot of the grip competitions that Andrew Durniat hosted, and that was a great time. And I helped him break down the medley they had. I was like, I have an idea. I spent like all morning in that room with the medley. I was like, this is where the majority of your points are going to come from, and here's what I think I've watched you do the best, and how I think you should probably. He was like, all right, I'll try it, and like he did very well. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, anyway, that's yeah, it's hard to not get discouraged sometimes, but it's like that, like you said, with anything, whether it's being on the mat with somebody or anything. There's somebody that's just going to come and they're just going to look at them and you're like, are you serious? You don't even believe them. You're like, you've never done this before. They're like, nope. You're like, yeah, you have. Maybe they haven't. You know, the Khaled guy, and for the people that have been following the arm wrestling, the dude in Dubai that is given like schoolboy, is like, he's at a pro level right now that he would come over and beat a lot of the pros that are known right now. And he not had, it's, I mean, like you listen to Devin talk about it on, like, it's crazy. He's just an absolute specimen. And there are a lot of people like that. And that's what I want to see. Like if you're saying that there's somebody double underhanding a red nail, these are specimens. These are people that are out there. They've probably been out there.
Oh yeah.
And we're just not, we're seeing them now because of platforms that, like you know, having YouTube and having all these different, the ability to see these guys and go, oh, that story Grandpa told me one time back in the day about this guy and he knew this. Oh, that was possible. Okay. Yeah. So now it's reality. That's pretty cool, though. I like it. Absolutely. To see the real superhumans, you know?
You know, what's funny is it's sort of a little comical. My list of questioning when I on the mat, when I am training, if someone comes in and they just are an animal, and I go, all right, well, did you wrestle? And they go, no. And then I go, did you like play football in college or something? They're like, no. And then always my last question is go, how many older brothers do you have? And then they're like 10. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
There you go. Yeah, it's like, it's out of desperation. They're like, I got to survive.
Yeah.
I got to figure something out. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
So take
Very
me
cool,
back
man.
to what was your athletic background growing up, if you had one?
Yeah, I played baseball in high school. I played several different positions. You know, I was a left field pitcher. Every once in a while, they had me catching. I could throw very hard from a young age. I don't really know why. I mean, I had an uncle that was he was a collegiate baseball player. I think he played some 3A ball in the minor leagues. He could throw hard, but I remember like going to Busch Stadium in St. Louis all the time. My favorite thing was to go to left field because they had like the see how fast you could throw thing. And I was like 13, 14 years old. I was pretty small. I was like, when I was 14, I weighed like 140. So, I mean, I wasn't like a big kid or anything. I was like, you know, I was like 5'8" or 9 at 14, I don't know, somewhere in there. And I could throw like 74 miles an hour at like 14 and 140 pounds. And then I remember being like 15 and hitting 82 or something like that. So I could throw really hard, and I could swing a bat really hard. As far as being able to play baseball at an upper level, I don't think that was there for me. But my physical attributes were like I could run fast, I could throw hard, I could swing hard. Like so, what's even funnier is if we're talking about baseball, the most the most applicable thing to a podcast about lower arm strength would be that every year when we'd start out playing, or even throughout the year, sometimes they would turn off for whatever reason. They turn the water off to the field, so they would turn off the water fountains and the bathrooms, and everything. And you know, like the steel tops that the lids they have to take off, and then they put this tool down about like 2 to 3 feet in the hole and turn it to turn the little valve, right?
Sure.
So the little valve is like 1.25 inches wide, maybe 3/8 of an inch thick, and it just kind of comes out. It's just a straight flat piece of steel. So then the tool is just like a cutout little 1-inch thing they stick in there. Well, we didn't have that, and after school we'd go down there, and even the coach, which was a pretty, you know, he's a pretty buff guy for, you know, us in high school especially, like he was jacked, and they're like, we don't have water, and here's how you get it. We were all like trying to get in there, and they're like, hey, we can't turn it. And everybody on the team tried grabbing into this thing and turning it. And I reached in there and went, turn the water on. Even because that was after our coach, Coach Green, he couldn't turn it. So it was a thing. Every time they're like, JT, hey, we need the water on, man. And I'm like, all right. Got to walk over and turn the water on real quick. Just like reach out there, squeeze with my thumb and twist. And to this day, like nobody ever, I'm like, I want to go back and like see how hard that really was, you know, since I was like 15 or 16 at the time. But I was like the first gripper I ever closed with no training was a number 2. Wow. And I kind of understood how to, in my mind, like I thought like you probably don't just bury it into your palm. Right. You probably need to get it into a position where you're more capable of actually having an advantage on it. Yeah. And but I closed it, so I definitely had a lot of lower arm strength very early on. So I definitely had a propensity towards the stuff that I do now, be it grip or arm wrestling or bending. I just went to my buddy's Stan Salee over the weekend, and I haven't bent anything in a while. I've been preoccupied with a lot of other stuff. I haven't been able to be lifting in quite a while. And we were just standing there talking, and he pulled out one of his toolbox drawers with all kinds of bars in it, some of my bars. And he was saying, he's like, here's those red nails that we had, and here's this. He's like, let's bend a red nail. And I just wrapped it up. And I was like, man, that's nice just to be able to just do that. Yeah. And like just that kind of level of just like residual strength. Yeah. Functional residual strength without training. And that's nice.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that is like that, and it's sort of hard to explain. I was getting into this with Bud Jeffries when he was on, was like the stuff with the steel bending. I feel like once you get it, it like unlocks it in your brain. And I haven't been around long enough to know if you lose it, right? Like you do with other strength, like if you don't practice it. But I feel like like once you unlock that ability to, like you're saying, to do a red, I feel like something bad would have to happen to not be able to do one, you know? Like there hasn't been too many things I've experienced yet where I can do it one day and then I can't the next. It's like you just level up and then you're there.
That's the proverbial riding the bicycle, right?
Yeah.
So like that's kind of like and that's right. I think so. You're right. There, you know, obviously, like anything else, there are limitations to that. Like, for instance, I'll push back. I agree with you, but I can counter that with there were bars that I got to bending back in the day. There are bars that I bent that I didn't even record I didn't realize they were like harder than some that were the hardest ones that I recorded.
Oh, wow.
But like if I went to try to do that now, I would grab one. I have grabbed those like specific bars, those set bars, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I did that before. What?
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, but yeah, there's still that level. It's like what I was saying, like red nails are just like, I mean, that's definitely like a nice pinnacle for people to get. But I like once you do unlock the double overhand, especially, we can keep the red nail for like if we want to start limiting bending to reverse and double underhand. But as far as double overhand, just not enough. I've had several conversations with Randall Straussner, and I'm sure there's some sort of logistic reasoning or maybe some other reasoning that I'm not aware of, and that is none of my business. But it seems that it would be appropriate to have some sort of an intermediate nail between the red nail and the gold nail. I think most people would agree with that, considering no one has officially bent the gold nail.
I feel that way about the jump from blue to red. That's right when I started reaching out to people cold on Instagram, being like, how do I bridge this gap from the freaking the 1/4 inch to up to the 5/16? And that's when people explained to me that I gotta do some bolts and this and that, and I feel like that's a pretty significant jump as well.
I would have to be completely honest, I have no position on that because I've not really bent any blue. I wasn't at the time when I got into it, like I said, I went to my local feed store and just went like this into the vat of 60 penny nails, and I worked from there. That might not have been the smartest thing to do, but again, like the way I came into it was extremely organic.
Yeah.
Like it was all me, not because I don't want to give anybody credit. Like I didn't know anything, and I just kind of figured it out. But
so it was all 60 pennies straight to the red nail for you then?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I'll
cool.
say, I think so. I did start bending quite a few 1/4 inch, 6 inch, 1/4 inch by 6 grade eighths.
Uh-huh.
But I'm pretty sure that was after I bent a red.
Oh, wow.
And I had just made it hard enough on myself trying to figure out how to bend a 60 that once I figured that out, that there wasn't that big of a gap between the 60 and, I mean, there was a gap for sure, but it wasn't an insurmountable goal.
Especially if you have some tough 60s, those things.
Right, I did. I didn't realize it, but whatever I was getting them from consistently, they were like hard, shiny. But somebody was telling me something they did with the 60. I was like, what? What? Yeah. What are you doing? And I sent them some of mine. They're like, oh, these are mutants. I'm like, maybe, but maybe yours are just like, I don't know, man.
Same with the ones that come from overseas. I've participated in some of David Horn's competitions, and
cool.
They're a lot of fun. The snapping and all that rules, and but the 6 inch nails that are coming from overseas are a different thing than
nuts.
These American nails, man.
Yeah, I've been some Russian steel they sent me. I've been some 1/4 inch Russian steel. I'm like, what? Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I guess I actually better try, because I a lot of things I'll grab, and there are plenty of grade 2 1/4 inch bolts that I'll bare hand bend.
Yeah.
And, And I think actually I was having a conversation with Nathan Hall. He's like, man, it's pretty good, mate. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know that you know. Because maybe the ones that you're bending, we can't, how do we know?
Yeah.
Unless I send these to you, and you can't, I mean, I appreciate the sentiment. I'm not being rude, obviously. I'm like, thank you very much, you know, but if I think about it on a deeper level, I'm like, is it though? Is it really good? And that's what's always pushed me, because I'm just like, I don't know that it is. I'm very introspective. I don't just go, yeah, I bent that. Ha ha ha. I'm like, see somebody else bent something. I'm like, that looked really hard for him. And I've watched him do something else that's very consistent. And my deductive powers tell me something's missing here. Yeah. Like this thing I'm bending maybe isn't as hard as, and I don't like that. I don't like portraying things that aren't, like, anytime anybody goes, you're probably doing this, I'm like, but if anything, I'm making it harder for myself. I promise you that.
Yeah.
And anybody that knows me would say the same thing. Like that, like even telling stories, they're like, he's probably embellishing. They're like, he's probably leaving things out, bud.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go to bed at night thinking that like I somehow fooled somebody. Mm-hmm. I want somebody to, whatever it is, it doesn't even have to be steel, but it could be anything. I want somebody to realize the integrity of the person and be like, oh, wow, he's a special guy. Yeah. I strive to be that special guy, whether it's in being able to portray somebody strong at bending a piece of steel, or somebody that had a very, very good story and I told it to you and it seemed like unbelievable, but it was every bit of as honest as like it was truthful, you know? So
yeah. I can relate to what you're saying for sure. And it also made me think about like I think for a lot of the guys that I look up to in this, and like Don Cummings, he comes up every episode, but he's just out there doing such inspiring stuff. I get a lot of inspiration from him, and it's like, it seems like the glory, and I've experienced this personally, it's like the glory of doing a bend is fleeting. It's like, as soon as it's done, like it took a while for me to figure out the red nail and the iron mine pads. I could do them in leathers for a while, but then it took a while, but I got it. And then I swear, as that thing closed, I was already thinking about like, all right, I got to be able to wrap it up in one pad and do that, you know? And it's like, that's what's cool about it too, you know? And I think that's like a lot of the guys have that in common, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's that feeling that you have, like the high, it's ephemeral. It's very short-lived.
Yeah.
It's very analogous to what people say, like they're chasing the dragon, like a junkie, right? You're trying to. You want, okay, what's the next bend? Well, I could cut it down a half an inch, I guess. Yeah. Take a pad off. Maybe I got to do it like this guy did, and I did. Man, I did that for so long. Like I can't help but wonder, like when I was at the peak of my bending, I was going through not a great time in my life. I had a lot of stuff going on that I was dealing with. And like a lot of things that people focus on, especially men, like they find an outlet to focus their energy on, I'm sure because of testosterone.
Yeah.
And mine was bending. I was bending at one point when I was doing the best. I was bending so much every day and trying to do so many different certs on whether it's FBBC or Bender's Battlefield.
Yep.
I'm confident I was on the verge of hurting myself, overtraining, overworking myself. Because there were times where I'd wake up and I'm like, I want to do this. And I'm like, I might have done some reverse certs or try to get something on the board there. And I'm like, man, that's really hurting. I'm like feeling tendon pain, like deep in it. I'm like, maybe I should not do that today, maybe even the next day. Maybe I need to take a few days off. And I would force and I would do that. I would heed my own advice, and 4 days later I'd come back and do something stupid. And I kept getting stronger, and I'm like, fuck yeah. I loved it. It was great. It was such a great feeling. And obviously I'm sure you feel that way in anything you do where you conquer something, where, you know, there's such a great feeling to overcome something, like you said, it's so simple, but to feel that a piece of steel that has like evaded you just fold up it's the simplest form of just like, you're like, I just beat you. You weren't that
It's
tough.
nice.
It's a weird mental thing. Yeah.
It comes up a lot, and I think it's why people get so into this. And like, of course you can videotape your lifts and stuff like that, but there's something about having physical evidence that of your efforts, like a prize of your efforts.
It stays there.
Like this, now it's here. It's just
here now.
Yep. There's something very, very cool about that.
I completely agree, man. Yeah, you have hard evidence generally in the form of a full 5-gallon bucket or whatever it is you throw them in. But yeah, for sure, man.
So we're talking grades of steel and this and that. I think it'd be a good time to get into what you got going on with your cert bars, which if everybody doesn't know, JT has some new certs out. There's only some heavy hitters on there. So go to the challenge dude and get with these new certs.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I had Gil Goodman rate them. I'm trying to think what the ratings were exactly. I have it someplace. I basically just came from my job when and took a shower before I got here, so I wasn't able to prepare as much as I'd like to. So I wanted to have those numbers on there, but
I'll get them from Gil.
Thank you. Yeah. So right now, the 3 bars that I have that you can start on it's a carbon bar that's the equivalent of like a red nail. Obviously, steel might vary. Then, of course, a stainless bar. And we didn't really finish what I was going to go into with talking to Randall Straussner about that intermediate bar, but I tried to get him to do a silver nail.
Oh.
That might have been like a harder version of a red nail, just to, if anything, just to kind of get people to get on that bandwagon and feel like the jump was a little more realistic, whether it was or wasn't. But anyway, so I offer a stainless bar as well. Technically, for men, I offer 2 stainless bars. If you can bare hand the smallest stainless bar, the 1/4 inch, by 7. If you can bare hand that, I have been able to get it to about 45 degrees before I feel like I'm about to send it right through my palm. And so if you can do that, you can start applying that too. But the other ones and the pads I've got too, they're basically equivalent to the old Battlefield pads. I think they're 1050 denier nylon, I believe. But yeah, so it's just basically like a bastard or a shiny bastard equivalent. Yeah. So you got your bars today, you said?
Yeah, I did.
So have you given any of them a try yet?
No, I'm taking a much needed rest day after a few days of heavy hitting. Everybody's recommending this thing called rest, and I keep blowing it off, but I keep tearing up my hands. So I'm trying.
Right on. Are you enjoying like double overhand bending the most, or what have you been mixing it up?
I like it all. Like I'm definitely weakest at reverse, but I'm trying to get the numbers up. Like the bastard in every way is certainly a goal of mine. I feel like that's when you could be considered pretty legit. Adam and I were talking.
I think I've done some of those. I think I've done
you were
a few.
on there. Oh yeah.
Okay. It's been so long, but I'm pretty sure that back in, see those lists. Yeah, that's right. I forgot all about those. Those were like lists. I'd sit at home and I just like scroll through on an actual computer. I'm like sitting there, I'm like, I probably do that. Let's see. I'll just walk out to my little garage and be like, okay, set up my little terrible phone. Like, okay, I can do that, or I can't. I'm like, whatever. But I did a lot of those. I did like 5, 6, 7 certs a night for all. Wow. It was just so much, man. It was it was intense on the tendons.
You're all over the Fat Bastard site. I don't know if the Bender's Battlefield stuff is accessible anymore.
No,
but
it's not.
Yeah, you're all over there. I was looking at it earlier. But yeah, that the Bastard. Yes, if you look at the regular Bastard for DO, we're talking probably 65 names, and I know there's been a lot since that during quarantine and whatnot. But you look at the Bastard in every way, it's like Don Cummings, Adam Glass, you, a couple other heavy hitters, and that's it. That's an elite bunch right there.
Yeah, I think those kind of guys. I don't know what their story is, but yeah, you go down a rabbit hole, right? And
Yep.
let's see what you're capable of. And yeah, I just started trying to figure out how far I could push everything. And to go back to what we were talking about earlier with Paul and I, the first time I met Paul and I was during that Bender's Battlefield era where they had that website. Okay, so this was just a forum for anybody that isn't familiar with what it was. It was a forum where you could post bending videos. I think it was, from my recollection, it was just bending, I think. I don't know that there might have been some grip stuff on there, but you go on there to bend, and they offered wraps, which, like I said, I think the wraps that I have are pretty much the equivalent. I actually had my Bender Battlefield wraps probably out in my shop someplace, but they're the heavy duty version of what Iron Minds pads are. And anyway, so I started bending some bars. I'd ordered they offered a few. I think Mike Kraling calibrated them. And once you got to a certain level, you were able to try to bend their Bender's Battlefield bar, I think it was, or the Battle Bar.
Right, I've heard of that.
And I'm trying to remember what that would. I don't even remember. Like, I remember I had a female friend of mine that was just over that, and she dropped by when I was getting ready to do it, and I was like, "You want to help me with this?" She's like, "Oh, you're doing your bending?" Yeah. I'm like, "Don't let it leave frame." It was like so. It looked like. Oh, it was so archaic. But she got it on there, and I was like, she's like, "Are you gonna be able to bend it pretty easy?" I'm like, "I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just gonna try." And all of my friends were always like, You're gonna hurt yourself as hard as you press it." I'm like, maybe. You don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not, that's not the goal, but anyway, so I bent that, but I bent something, and I'd already been following Paul Knight for a while. I was like, man, that dude's a freak. And I was like, this guy's just, well, he messaged me one day, and I probably didn't realize what he was getting at, but he was being cordial. He was like, "Hey man, that's pretty cool band." And I was like, "Oh, hey, thanks, man." Blah, blah, blah. I feel like at first he probably thought it was like I was cheating.
Right.
Maybe. He's like, "I'd love to send you some bars or something." I'm like, "That'd be great." And so he sent me a package with a bunch. He had a bunch of welder's paint marker marked all over all of them in his own. And he's like, "I sent you some 6.5-inch hex, or some 7-inch hex, some 6.5-inch stainless hex, calibrated by Eric Milfeld." And I was like, "Oh, cool, man! This is so awesome." He's like, "Let me know when you get it, and make sure you video it." And well, he said something about trying to bend the 6.5-inch in doubles. If I could, he was just saying, like, if you think you can bend them in doubles. He wasn't being like condescending or anything.
Yeah.
And I took the 7-inch one, and I had, I'm not sure if it was double sways or if I had double iron mind pads, but I think I wrapped it up. It's probably on my old YouTube account, but I bent it easily to an extent. Enough that I thought, I want to try the 6.5 that Eric rated at 640 pounds. I want to try it just iron mind pads. And I remember this is the most painful bend I've ever done in my entire life. Even over the 610 bar that I certified on in less than a minute on Bender's Battlefield. There's a point on this hex that I was bending the bar that I was very confident I was going to break my right index finger. It was starting to hurt so badly. I remember thinking, like, this is a weird thought I had. I remember thinking, will it break my skin first, or will it break my bone? Like, what will give first? Like, will there be like a will it cut through or will it snap? And after like, I don't know what hit it was. And I don't think I had made it quite to the sweep. I hadn't made it quite to the sweep yet. And I was dropping it. And of course, in my mind, I'm like self-talking. I'm like, your wraps are getting loose. It's gonna get harder for you, man. Not getting easier, bud. And I were thinking, we're not doing that. And I remember holding it as I'm breathing, thinking, either just stop or just do it. Don't do the in between.
Yeah.
Just make the decision that I'm either willing to hurt myself for this task, or I'd rather just not do it. Just choose one. Don't make it a, well, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I mean, we will see what happens.
Yeah.
But don't go into it with that frame of, I don't want to approach it like that.
Sure.
I made the decision. I was like, you know what? And I remember doing that. I'm like, and I always wrap the wraps the direction to where when I did this, I would tighten them up to where, again, with going into wrapping wraps, I would make sure the way I did it didn't end up being the same direction to where when I turned this one, it would loosen that one. Never would I do that. And that was just one little thing I would do. I'd make it to where you're on a time limit. I want to be able to go like this with my wraps, and it tightens them.
Nice.
So I did that, and I went up in that moment when I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, oh, it's all over. It's all over. My finger's not broken that I know of. It wasn't. I was like, it's all over. And then I finished that bar, but that was the hardest part. So anyway, I messaged Paul and I was like, hey, were you able to bend that that stainless hex? And I said, yeah, the one I did in double iron, whatever it was. And I was like, that's pretty tough, but it wasn't too big. But I ended up doing the 6.5. I decided, I want to try it in iron mine pads. And so I went ahead and bent that in iron mine pads. It was really hard. I didn't get the finish. He goes, wait, what did you say? Hey, he cut me off. That 6.5 bar that I marked up. I went, yeah. He goes, is that the one you're talking about? You said you bent that in iron mine pads? I went, yeah, it was really hard. I didn't do it in under a minute, that's for sure. He's like, he started laughing. Like, he goes, please tell me you recorded it. And I went, well, yeah. He goes, this, get off the phone with me and upload that video of Bender's Battlefield, please, right now.
Oh, man.
I said, okay. I don't all right. So I did, and he started commenting on it, calling me back. He's like, dude, that is, and then he invited me to come down and hang out with him.
Cool.
And and I ended up by complete happenstance. Do you know who John McCarter is?
I've heard the name. I'm not sure who it is.
He's a grip guy.
Okay.
He's an interesting dude. He's a cool dude, but he's definitely interesting. And I don't know how it happened. He's like, yeah, bring him too, man. And we went down there, and that was where the whole group was down there at the time, like Tommy Jennings, and ended up meeting with Big Jason English of Big J's Extreme Fitness, and I went down there. I think I made like 2 or 3 trips to Texas before he moved. He's very hospitable, super awesome dude. Like most people that don't know him, like he wears a suit for a living, but like the dude's gangster when he's not wearing his suit. It's so
wow.
But anyway, it was a pretty good time, pretty good experience. And yeah, I mean, since then, like between him and Jed, like we've went, like Jed and I meeting up in Pennsylvania and then going and staying at Paul Knight's, going to several different Arnold Classics and getting to meet a lot of great people, and being an advocate for the sport, if we can call it that. It's something that we hopefully will grow into something known as a sport for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. You kind of touched on it, like just the edge of it a few times now. Was there any injuries that you experienced while you were really doing the heavy bending?
Nothing that stopped me from, nothing other than like muscle strain, really.
Yeah.
If anything, I got some pretty severe muscle spasms in my neck.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure if that's something that was like just an innate issue that I had, or if it was related to bending, or if it was just what I was doing, like when I was going up like this, and then like just straining when I bend my head up, like when I like, I'm sure like most people, but whenever I roll over onto the top of that bar, I am squeezing from my big toes, like everything in my body. I wish I could see some sort of like be on like when they do EEGs or EKGs for people's brains. And they're like, think about this or play this musical instrument, and they can see. I'd like to see how many muscles are activating whenever I'm like, I've gotten cramps in like my quads. So I'm just like, squeezing everything. So I would get muscle spasms in my neck that were pretty painful. But as far as like actual injuries, aside from just having deadened nerves in the tops of my index fingers, like to this day, like they're just dead because of all the repetitive pressure constantly. Nothing substantial, nothing that sticks out in my mind, honestly.
Interesting. So. Now, just out of curiosity, how about, because I have a theory about injuries, and have you experienced too many catastrophic injuries outside of bending, doing other stuff, or no?
I have experienced several injuries to things that, for instance, I've had 2 orthoscopic surgeries on my right knee. One when I was 16 and one last year.
Okay. And
the irony in this is I cannot, if a gun was put to my head, tell you what happened either times. It was just like when I was 16, I was kneeling on something. I'm assuming something had already happened, but I was kneeling down, stood up, heard a click, couldn't straighten my knee out. Ended up trying to straighten my knee out because I was just like, I'll make it straighten out. I tore everything. Lateral meniscus, medial meniscus, something in my ACL. The doctor was like, "You're an idiot." I'm like, maybe. Yeah, I am. I don't know. But then doing some oil field work last year, I started getting a clicking. I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to be the hypochondriac. I'm just going to go. I have insurance. I'm going to go to the doctor. He's like, hey, I got a tear in your meniscus. I'm like, So I went and fixed it. I've had a compound fracture in my forearm from when I was younger. I mean, like, I always played pretty rough. I was always all in with most things I do. Like you said, like even with like being like, you take the dive. You're like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I've done a little bit of training in BJJ back in the day. And it's definitely, I got the same feel from the guys I trained. Like, they were going to do with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu what later on in life I realized I was going to do with like bending. My time schedule for the place and that was the only place I could train. It was just like a schedule conflict, or I would still be into like grappling. But you go all in. You're just like, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do this, and maybe I'm going to get hurt, but I like it a lot, and it's fun. And so, yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know. You make the decision, you take the dive, and hope for the best. Obviously, there's a lot of injuries in jiu-jitsu. There's so many, but and it's probably a lot more rewarding than like bending. It's interactive too, because it's a very intimate thing. You know, you're rolling around with another man, and you might hurt him, or he might hurt you, or you just, even if it's not physically hurt, you might just basically go, I just owned you.
Yep.
And you got to learn how to be okay with that, or you're going to have problems with everything from here on out. You can't just be like, if you can't just stand up and be like, man, that was awesome, man. And be like, yeah. But like he could have just killed you if he wanted to. Like that happens. So
the hierarchy and the respect all gets worked out so easily.
It's a pecking order kind of thing, and it's like you can move on that pecking order, and you can be like and work to get higher on it, but you can't pretend that you're not in the position you're in, because you're going to get shown where you're at, whether you believe it or not. Like, you can pretend to be something you're not, but you're going to get excluded real quick. And
I'll tell you what else I really miss about it too. That's like, I feel so lucky to have experienced this. Is just the bond I have with so many different types of people that I agree or disagree with so firmly politically, given the nature of the world right now, and just having intimate interaction, like you're saying, with people, and knowing there's more to them than what they're putting on social media was a extremely valuable thing, and I miss it so much because the people aren't getting that right now, you know?
I completely agree. I think, what was one of the things I heard Andrew Yang say? He's a presidential candidate, I think, this year.
Yep.
So he believes that policemen should be a purple belt. All policemen should, I don't know how realistic it is, but he said, I believe all policemen should be a purple belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, man, I think more people, like, see, here's the slippery slope. Like, when you start saying, I think more people should have to this,
Yeah.
start to sound a little communistic like.
Right.
But the thing that politically we can't understand is that, like, not all communistic views are like a bad idea.
Right.
Because when you say that, I'm thinking, I wish a lot of people had to go through a certain level of basically getting their ass beat.
Yep. Yep.
So they understand, like I love to play pool, and I've been into plenty of bars, and I could see the people that will run their mouth, and there are plenty of dudes that can handle themselves that still like to run their mouth, but for the mostly, I'm like, that dude hasn't been slapped right in his teeth.
Yeah.
He just doesn't get it. I can tell you right now, because you don't act the same, and the more you've dealt with like that, the more you've overcome, and the more you've been put on your back or choked out, or just even have to tap out.
Yeah.
You're in a Kimura and you're like, stop. You're like, have to tell him, please don't hurt me more, basically.
Yeah.
You start finding a new level of compassion for things and a new appreciation for how things work. And I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
It sounds like trite or cliche, but it is like it's almost like a spiritual thing. It's almost like something where you find something in yourself you didn't know was there when you realize, like, oh, this dude that weighs 50 pounds less than me could just end me. Like, I could walk up to him and he could just go, you don't want to do this, man. Like, and then you find yourself looking at things differently, and it transcends into like you said, like politics or anything. You start looking at things from a new perspective.
Yeah.
Because now you know how vulnerable you can be. You're like, well, I'm a full-size man that's like, no, listen, stop. You don't understand. Yeah, stop. Yeah.
It's driving home from like hard competition training, that's probably the nicest I'll ever be. I'm just exhausted. Like, someone could literally cut me off so bad, I'd be like, have a nice night, like it's,
you know what? You need to get home that bad? You got it. I'm gonna stop the next few people. Let's let a few more people through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get a similar kind of thing after a really hard bending session, especially if I do something that I'm really proud of, like that exertion is important.
A little dopamine rush, you're just feeling great. Yeah. I don't know that it would compare to some hard rolling on a mat. Again, I haven't done enough to be able to have a big opinion on it, but I've done enough that I'm like, I get it. I totally can extrapolate and go, oh yeah, that could definitely be a thing, like where you're just like super humbled. But yeah, I mean, I think anything you're willing to fail at.
Yeah.
And anything you're willing to fail at completely, and you put yourself out there. That's like going out and asking somebody out, and just like, pass or fail. You're just like, you know what, I fucking did it. I went out there and I did the best I could. And whatever you get, how you know where you stand.
How you react to it, I think, too. It's like
more about yourself, right?
Like so many people, maybe they come in pretty cocky, pretty sure of themselves to jiu-jitsu, and they realize there's this thing here that's where the road diverges, right? You can either realize you don't know anything and train and figure it out and take this way, or you can go through life realizing and pretending like it doesn't exist, pretending it's a trick or something. And I feel like steel bending's steel bending's the same way, man. It's just like you could
Exactly
see someone
right.
bend a bar and be like, I need to learn that. And then when it's hard, you might just bail, like, but not the people that I think we're talking to.
I completely agree. And to go off of what you said there with the, I've ran into a lot of people that I think enjoy it because there's plenty of area that you can make it look like something it's not. And like what I was saying earlier about, like, I want to know, whenever I see somebody else do something, I'm like, I do the opposite that I see a lot of people do. They're like, oh, I already did that. I'm like, I don't think it's the same bar. I know it looks the same. I don't think it's the same. I want to see their bar. Maybe theirs is harder. Like, I give everybody, I'm like, I like shoot myself down first, and I'm like,
Right.
ah. And because too many people, I think, go to something like this and they're like, they want to use it to make themselves look like they're capable of more than they are. They can still be a strong person,
Yeah.
but they carry themselves with this air of expertise or this this entitlement that was unearned. And it just kind of, I hesitate to say it makes me ashamed to be a part of what we do or anything, but I'm trying to figure out a better way to articulate that. I don't like that sometimes, and I find myself getting bitter and like being that guy that's like kind of a dick and like saying, hey, try it this way. And I don't know, it's some people verge on being disingenuous with how they do things with bending. And you know, like, for instance, just as an example, obviously over the years I've had plenty of people come up to me, whether I've actually had plenty of people like just recognize, which is weird. I'm like, this is the weirdest thing. But are people that are friends of friends, they're like, hey, aren't you that guy that's so and so? And I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
So we'll talk like rolling a frying pan, let's say.
Yeah.
I'm like, the problem with things like this is there are frying pans that nobody can roll up.
Yeah.
And there are frying pans that my girlfriend can roll up.
Yeah.
And what criteria or metric can you use on your tablet to know the difference?
Yep.
And they're like, huh? I'm like, exactly. You don't. So you watch this guy do it and you watch that guy do it. And apparently they're just as strong as each other because they both did it.
Right.
And we obviously know that's not the case. And I don't like that there's that lost in translation thing there. It bothers me.
Yeah.
Because I just want honesty. Because I understand that there are people that are still way ahead of what I am capable of in certain aspects. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But conversely, I'm also not okay with the guys that are trying to make themselves at a level that they're not. That are down here with that specific area of strength. And so you get a lot of that with like the bending thing, because there's too many things, like ripping a deck of cards in half. It's just like, or a phone book more appropriately, because there are ways to really like tear a phone book that you can just be taught and just rip the pages, you know? So that kind of thing bothers me, is I don't want to be the guy that gets lumped in with that. And I don't want any of my other fellow benders or strength athletes to also be lumped in with the, yeah, I watched a guy on YouTube tell you how you can do that.
Yeah.
Instantly, I'm just like, I want to hand them something and say, do this barehanded. I'm about to. I'm like, oh, that's not good. Don't let them hurt themselves because you're mad that there's a couple bad apples out there.
Yeah.
Or people with ill intent that just want to like make a TikTok video and be like, see, I can do that too.
Sure.
But yeah, you get that with anything, I guess. So.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's it. Jiu-jitsu, like keeping that parallel going as I usually do on the show, but that's a unique thing where it's like it's in person, interactive, and the bullshit gets shaken out 100%. It's so pure in that sense. Like I guess if we were doing bending competitions with calibrated steel in person with wraps that were regulated and stuff, that could be a sense where the bullshit would be weeded out. But yeah, I mean, there's poses and everything.
That gets weeded out when you start getting into person. That's a whole different thing. You don't get those yahoos.
Yeah.
They don't show up anywhere. Those guys don't ever go anywhere.
Sure.
Because most I don't know how many how many places you've been to where there's a bunch of bending guys. Like I used to frequent, the Arnold Classics, and we go, like Nick Rosendahl and Stu, his brother, and Chris Rice. They call him Climber, like the old guy. He's I think probably 72. You know who Chris Rice is? Okay.
Yes,
They put on garage nights, and they would just be. They're just the best hosts, man. And they would just have everybody. The first, I think it was 2011. Yeah, it was Arnold Classic 2011. Because I was wearing my Iron Mine Red Nail shirt, and I think I had, was it Doc came up to me? I think, yeah. He was like, hey, you've been the Red Nail. And I was, sure, yeah. And he's like, he was talking to me. I wasn't sure. I was like, is this guy a weirdo or is this? He's like, I do this thing with bending every year afterwards, and it's garage night, and buddies get together and we do grip and bending. And here's the address if you'd like to come by. I told my buddy, I was like, screw, let's go by. And anyway, we ended up going out there, and all of us hung out. I think who had the original FBBC? John Beatty was out there, and I think it was the same year he was on America's Got Talent. So like a bunch of guys showed up. They actually had, if I can remember correctly, he solicited the services of a place called Man Cave Mavis basically these guys provided a service where they're like, we show up with like these different brews and like some, like they basically take care of your event. They're like, yeah. And it was anyway, the point of it is I think like I met these guys, and there was just nobody that was at any of the garage nights that was ever like, this guy's an idiot. All guys that were open to learning and good at certain things. And like, you'll never find those, like the trolls or those guys that do one single thing and try to get some sort of real quick instant gratification type of fame. Nah, that doesn't. It's all like good dudes, and I'm super glad that I showed up for that, because built a pretty good friendship with all those guys. And I think one of the hardest things I ever did, besides that nail or that bar, that hex that Paul Knight gave me, was a Kirkhart 7. I think it was number 7, SX7. Kirkhart SX7 horseshoe. I turned into a heart barehanded. And it took me like 45 minutes. My hands were fucking bleeding. But I did it right there at garage night at, I think it was Nick Rosendahl's house that year. And they're all standing there. And I think Climber and like Andrew Durnout were talking, and they're like, see what he's doing? And they're like, yeah, he's weird. He's I'm just like over him, like I kind of set aside so I wasn't bothering anybody while I was just like tearing into my hands trying to bend this horse. And as a matter of fact, I think I gave it to the girl I'm dating now, because we were going through some like weird, I don't know, I had it sitting I don't know, I didn't have it hung up or anything like that. I was like, hey, look at this. And this was probably one of the hardest things I've ever did. She's like, I love that. So I gave it to her. But
cool.
Hey, Adrian. See if it's sitting in there, I could show it to you if it'd be
nice.
So you're, but anyway, I guess the Yahoos, you don't really see those guys show up as well as getting there.
Right. So you got most of your stuff going on TikTok these days, huh?
Not anymore. I kind of got out of it. It's such a funky format. I like doing a lot of live feeds with people, so I could interact with them. But I kept getting my live feeds banned.
Really?
I would get a warning. It was very strange. I would get a warning. The first warning I got for dangerous content was I was doing it's a very strange thing. I was outside doing I think I had a 114-pound kettlebell. I was doing a snatch or a flip with it or something. With a 114-pound kettlebell. And I walked over there and I saw there's a thing that said, you're getting a warning, dangerous content. I was like, okay. And I had done something else. One was a nail or something it was a nail or a bolt. I was doing it barehanded. Yeah. And I don't know if it's I don't know if it was like people commenting, wow, that looks painful, you're gonna hurt yourself. I don't know what it was, but I got the same, like, this is your second warning. So long story short, I got my third warning, and that was since it was dangerous content, lifetime ban. And I was just like,
oh damn.
It was very disappointing because I was reaching enough people that I wanted to be able to keep pushing, like doing functional strength training.
Cool.
And pointing to other people, you know, like Dave Whitley, you know, he's likes doing this stuff, and he's you know, he's always, him and Tim Fox, they're always trying to push it towards kids and get a good message out there of what people can do, and so now it's just like I was reduced to like I could post videos, which is great, but like as we can already see, I'm a very loquacious person. I like discussing things with people. I like having conversations.
Right.
It's the best way. A good conversation is the best way to exchange great information. Like, you can comment and exchange comments only so much before you're like, things get lost in translation. But being able to have like these like intimate things where there's like long form interaction, you can kind of head off some problematic areas of things you're like, you know, that maybe there's controversy or confusion on. And you can go, no, actually, that's not it at all. And then it's over. And so I've kind of like started steering away. I don't know if I'd like to find another venue to do stuff like that, because I like to keep up with doing this stuff and keep it out there. But aside from like trying to revamp like my first YouTube channel, which is still up there, it's like, it was just me. I only created it because I needed something to give to, you know, like Bender's Battlefield or whomever, to go, here, I did this. So like, I don't talk. I don't really. I'm just like, this blah blah blah. Like, it's not. You don't watch it like, this is so fun. This is so fun to watch. It's just like, it was just something I had to do. It was, but I wouldn't mind actually doing one where like we actually interacted and had discussions about things, whether it was bending, grip, or any other form of like, you know, functional strength, like you said.
Yeah. I'd like to see it come over to, I know you have an Instagram, but it's not very active. That's just, I feel like the best, the place where I'm seeing the most interesting bending going down is Instagram right now. And
Really?
You can go live on it. You know, it does have a live feature where you could be doing some stuff and interacting with people, but it's mostly videos, and you can post long form videos now up to an hour on Instagram.
Oh,
TV.
It's not very short anymore.
Well, you can do short, but they also introduced this thing called Instagram TV where you can post a long video up to an hour. And it also has the live chat feature and whatnot. It's pretty cool. I just think that's like the most interaction I see amongst guys that are currently bending is certainly happening on Instagram, I feel like.
Gotcha. Yeah, somebody else told me to try Instagram out for live feeds. Even do they have a live feed limit on how long you can actually do a feed? That was my concern.
I'm not sure. I would, if I had to make a guess, I would say maybe an hour, because the long videos are only up to an hour, but I'm not sure.
Thank you. Right on. Yeah, here was that.
Wow.
Here was that SX7.
Damn, that's nice.
But yeah, that was that sucker was bad. That was absolutely the hardest thing that I've ever done.
Damn, that's a big shoe.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely consider that. I definitely need something that, like, I think, you know, TikTok being, there's so many, you know, so many kids on there. I get that it's like hypersensitive to anything that could be dangerous. So I get it. I wouldn't want them to make any kind of, you know, I wouldn't want them to change policies because there are full-grown men on there wanting to do like backflips and flip bells and stuff like that. But I would like to be able to have a platform that I can get a decent following and be able to actually have live. I had live feeds. So many, man, I do live feeds all the time. I had 100, 200, 300 people on there.
Nice.
A live feed, answering questions, people asking different things. I do bending, you know, I do all kinds of different stuff on there. And
that's something that I'm going to be doing coming up. I just to keep trying to get more excitement within this stuff, I'm going to be doing what I'm calling bending super fights. So I'm going to have guys, I'm going to go stream live, and then I'm going to have two guys go head to head. And like the first one's going to be like red nail insert conditions, who can close it fast enough or faster than the other guy. We'll do like best 2 out of 3. Then I got some guys from Europe that want to do a red nail snap head to head. We might do a bracket for that one because there's so many guys that want to do that. And then I'm thinking of some other things to just, just throw up there, additional content, whatnot.
Right on, right on. I was going to ask you, did you say that you got into bending after, like, have you been able to see any carryover from bending to like rolling if you haven't, or did you do that after you got out?
Yeah, man. So the only only with my 9-year-old son have I done any jiu-jitsu with, so I wouldn't know. But he says my hands feel real strong, so I don't know.
Oh, well, Dad, your hands feel so.
Yeah, I do feel like my deadlift went up a little bit. I do attribute to that for bending and grip training. That's like one concrete area I feel like I saw a benefit. But yeah, I don't know. We'll just see. I know all the guys that I train with are pretty freaked out about seeing bolts bent in half and all this stuff.
That's pretty cool, man. You know, it's funny you're talking about, so you say deadlifting. That's definitely interesting because I've gotten the question a lot. I never was like big into bench pressing.
Uh-huh.
There were plenty of times where I had like a respectable bench press only because I was powerlifting and I couldn't just not have one.
Right.
But I never was interested in it. But when I first got into bending, after I was out on the road for like 8 months, I wasn't working out at all. I was just bending. And when I remember coming back into town, Missouri, and I think I was getting ready to head to my buddies in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And he was like, yeah, man, hitting the gym. You want to come swing by and hit the gym with me? I'm going to do some bench press, and then we can go out. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds fun, man. Sounds like a blast. We'll go out and have some drinks afterwards. So we went there, and it was, he was just doing, generic bro workout. He's going to do some bench press or whatever, yep. Right? And he starts throwing like the weights that you would, a normally strong dude would warm up with, whatever. And he's like, what do you want to go to? I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, you put whatever on there, and if I don't think I can do it, well, I remember this was so long ago. I remember he got like 245 on there, and he got like 4 or 5 reps with it, I think, and he was like wrapped it up, and I remember thinking like, oh, he's definitely gotten stronger than he used to be at bench press, and I could tell like he was probably like wanting to be like, yeah. See, and I was thinking like, no, okay. And I hopped under there and I just smoked out 5 reps like it was nothing. And I remember thinking to myself, like, was that really like 245?
Yeah.
It felt really easy. And I remember seeing him kind of, I could tell he was like, so he ended up putting like we went like 275. And I think he got like, a few reps. I don't know what he got out of there, but I ended up having to grab the bar, and I got into there, smoked out 5 reps.
Wow.
No problem.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, that's looking good. So we started going to singles, and he got 300, and I smoked out 300, 315.
Wow.
335.
Oh, shit.
And like 335 was starting to feel really hard. And I was like, man, I think I got a little more in me. I got a fucking bounce off my chest rep with 350.
Whew.
No working out.
Wow.
Just double overhand bending.
That's awesome.
So people ask me, like, do you think bench pressing helps with bending? And I'm like, I don't know that I can make that statement, but I can tell you for damn sure that bending helps out with bench pressing. So I don't know if there's carryover in both directions. I don't know if it's like a permeable thing where it goes both ways. One would assume if you're a very strong bench presser, you can probably be taught to bend, double overhand very strong, but I can't testify to that because I've never been like, an Olympic, like somebody that could bench press 700 pounds, but I could tell you that I don't think it's normal for, at the time I was 215 pounds, to be able to do a 1 rep touch and go 350.
Yeah.
And somebody go, what's your bench press routine? Be like, bending. I just bend. That's all. They're like, what? Bend? What's bend?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that, because I think that's something that a lot of people have questions with. Like, will bench pressing help me? I don't know, but if you're looking for a big bench press,
yeah,
you might want to try some double overhand bending, do a lot of crush exercise. That's probably what it is too. Is like constantly just like squeezing your pecs together and like your traps and everything else that can.
There's
can
probably some neurological explanation in there too, I would imagine.
I think 100%. Okay. Here's something else that we could probably talk about that people have asked me consistently. They're like, because they asked me about why I try to bend why I bend things so fast. Because I have some things that are like, you bent that really fast. That's never been a thing for me, but in the abstract. By that I mean, like, I've never tried to bend something because I specifically am like, I want to see what I can do as a record on this. You exert the most energy the most efficiently when done as quickly as possible and not grinding it out. So whenever I bring that bar down to my chest and I roll over on top of it, I'm just doing it as hard as I can every single time. Unless I'm specifically just goofing off and just not doing it because I'm trying to make it look really effortless. If I'm trying to bend something that's tough, I'm doing it as fast as I can. So that will result either in a decent bend or something that isn't that hard for me being ridiculously fast.
Yeah.
And so I got to be able to do that with a red nail. And I think I used to have a very fast video on YouTube of like 4 seconds. And it was in 4 movements. So it was like out of the 3 motions, I took 1 extra on one of them. I can't remember which. And I thought the only way to get it to 3 seconds in my mind is to be able to do it very smoothly and like kink, sweep, crush, done.
Yeah.
And I have a TikTok video where I did that with a red nail.
Nice.
And I timed it because I didn't realize it until like a month later. Somebody said something about it. And so I timed that one. That one is like in 3 seconds. Like I bent a red nail and iron mine pads in 3 seconds.
Nice.
Ish. But I got to doing that because like out of bending like big bars, I wasn't like, I'm just going to try to grind through it. No, I hit all of those bars as hard as I could.
Yeah.
All of them. Because I don't want to waste energy. I don't want to just strain. I want to use fast twitch muscle and exert much force over the shortest amount of time as I possibly can. Yeah. So I've always been a very scientifically minded person. Yeah. So when it came to rapping or like how far to hang the raps off, like people that were really into it, I was explaining to them like, do it. Like Gil Goodman, I coached him on like a few things with how to start bending. I'm like, I'm not saying it'll work for you. Obviously, everybody's a little different. But if you want to start with what I know works for me, like even when like reaching up, like I would reach up and pull straight down instead of just like going like this. I don't want to go like this. I want to pretend like everything's a rubber band. Yeah. And I'm pulling down, locking it in, and then flexing my traps and rolling over onto it. Like I'm like hopping. It's a weird feeling thing, but once it clicks, it's just like, oh, that feels right. Yeah. Instead of feeling loose, instead of being like, I'm going to grab this and do it loosely. Yeah, maybe you can do that. Can you not do a lot more if you do it a different way, though? And I was always critiquing myself and like trying to find new ways to do things. And that was the way that I ended up bending some of the, my personal best were just the way that worked for me. So I always try to tell other people, maybe give that a shot. Yeah, I was trying to describe double overhand to somebody recently that doesn't bend, and they're like,
looking at me do it or something, and they're like, "What is this when you get it under your chin?" And I'm like jockeying for position under my chin and stuff. I'm like, "Well, it's to get into a position where I feel like I can pounce on it," and that was the terminology. Is
that's
like
exactly that's what it feels like. It's like it's not in that spot. And even when I first got into it, I would bend like right here in some of my early videos.
Cool.
Because even I'm a flexible guy, but I couldn't get it up into here. And I remember the first time I felt it get up into there, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, wow. I've been doing it wrong. Like it was just like unlocking, like, I don't even know. I should wrap this one up right here. I've never tried in new pads. You want to try that? See if I can flip this. Do it. Yeah, see if I can give you an idea of what I'm talking about.
Which bar is that you got there?
I guess that I think it's the Loki bar.
All right, cool.
Yeah, that's the carbon bar. Yeah, I got a shout out to my girlfriend there. She's the one I was like, we need to find like just a little fun niche, like a little something to make like bars, like something interesting. So she did like some research on some and I also incorporated that because it seems like there's a lot of Nordic people that, I mean, obviously there's plenty of Scandinavian giants that are like actual strongmen, but it does seem like aside from like the German and Russians, like there's a lot of people that do this obscure stuff like the bending in like Nordic countries. Like, there's a lot of people over there between like Juha and like there's so many. So I thought, you know what? Let's go with that. Let's go with some like Norse gods.
Cool.
And see if that's just something somebody would be like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's fun. And, so that was like, she was looking up different things. I'm like, this seems like the best version. It's going to be like the worst. This is going to be the worst wrap. I'm just like, make sure you wrap everything the best you can. This is going to be like the loosest wrap here.
Nice.
But that's fine. Sure. These bars, from what I remember Gil telling me, they don't rate crazy high. What's interesting is that I did want the stainless bar I was hoping that would be significantly higher, and I'm at the mercy of my local steel shop, like most people that supply bars are. Like, there's no way for me to like tell them like, well, I needed to have more strength in this area. They're like, what?
Sure.
So you just calibrate and see what you got, and but it ended up coming out that the crush on the stainless is harder, but the initial pink, Gil said, was rated a little low. And I have if I could find him, I have his rating someplace, but so I was like, well, you know what, take what you can get. Ultimately, the stainless is harder to crush down. So really, it's not that it just depends on what you're better at. And
well, hopefully we can get some people to that site. I mean, I know people are into the cert bars, and do you know Jan Heller? Or are you familiar with Horito?
He you say Jan, I think he ordered some bars from me. He was one of the first. Isn't he on the list?
Yeah. So he's got a really cool list of bolts actually and certifications for those. And the way he does the hierarchy is you can cut it down to get a spot higher up on the list, which is a lot of fun. So, and as you go up, man.
I've considered that. I'm going to try to do something for fun just because these wraps. I'm going to see if I can just do this in one wrap. Yeah, a lot of obviously Fat Bastard did that, and I've considered that. I'm still considering that, and the reason I haven't introduced a new bar, I want to do it. I want to be very methodical about it.
Yeah,
because I want it to be something that's like not just this plethora of just names scattered. Nothing against it, obviously my name's on a lot of different Fat Bastard stuff, and that's great, but I want to keep it, again, like a little more intimate. I want it to keep it to where you got to get to that level.
Yeah.
And then you're happy that you got there.
You got to, check out Horito's site. I'll send it to you when we're done here, because he's doing it really nice. He similar to you. He's got the video linked to the guys on the roster, and there's some big bolts, man. There's some heavy hitters up top. I'd like to see you get back into bending and get up on that roster with some of these guys, man.
I don't know if I can do it. I've never tried this. I just want to try it.
Oh, cool.
Jesus Christ, I can't even get it in the center of this wrap. See if I can do it sitting down.
All right.
Dig into my hand. Might have to stand up for it.
All right.
Yeah, I think if I remember what Gil told me about this bar, is it's somewhere in the vicinity of like, I think he said 440 something on this bar. Let me see if I can set this thing back. It's in there or not.
All right. Single wrap. Here we go.
Nope, not this one. I don't think so. Let's see if I can get it though.
You got a wobble in there?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, these I'm wondering too, like I had a couple of guys tell me that these some of these bars, one guy said like he tried telling me that he's like, that bar is not a 4, and I explained that to people too. It's like I buy 10 sticks 12 feet long,
Yeah.
of 5/16 steel from the set, like distributor at a time. That doesn't mean they all came from the same. Like they're like, that's not this, that's not. I'm like, I know.
Right.
What's funny too is like Gil sent me home with some bars. He's like, these are 500 and something pound bars. I was like, okay. It's like I think he said 540. Yeah, it's got a piece of tape on it. It's 545.
Yeah.
I was like, 545 pounds. I started to bend it with Iron Mind pads, and yeah, it wasn't going.
Yeah.
So put 3 wraps on this thing, like
nice.
a baby. So yeah, I'm wondering how much that kind of makes me wonder too, how much that varies. That was something I was going to tell you earlier too about the like back in the Bender Battlefield days. One of the things that kind of started to just made me want to leave was the highest bar rated that had been bent at the time was rated by Mike Crowling. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
It was a 680 pound bar, I think, and I had a 700 pound bar, and I bent it. And they denied it because the crush pads that I used weren't measured. But they were little thin pieces of leather that I just wrapped around the ends.
Right.
And I said, okay, I understand. But the guy that has the video before me didn't measure those crush pads. They're like, well, we know what they are. And I'm like, okay. So it's like, it's just so the politics. It's just like a lot of things. Like the politics kind of made it like.
There it is.
Yeah. with my
yeah.
with my super tight wraps on it. But yeah, that's something else too. People didn't realize, like it's if your wraps are loose, like that's gonna hurt your fingers so much more. Like it would be hard to learn to do it like tighter.
Yep. And where do you mark it? You started to say before, what do you do, 1 3/4 or 1.5 inches?
Oh, from the ends?
Yeah.
Never that far. No? I just guess on those, but no, I go like I think 1 1/4 inches.
Inch and a quarter. Okay.
Inch and a quarter to 2 an inch and a half, something like that. Yeah, somewhere around there. I'm not sure exactly. I used to have a thing that was sitting around that would be like where I'd mark it at.
Okay. Interesting. All right. JT, I could talk to you all night, but I'm going to hit you with the medley now. All right. He just bent a, so rapid fire series of questions. First one, favorite thing to bend?
Grade 8 bolts.
All right. Hardest thing to bend for you?
Big grade 8 bolt.
All right. Strongest bending style?
Double overhand.
Weakest style?
Double underhand.
All right. Something outside of training, bending, strength stuff in general that you enjoy?
So many things.
You could say like David Wigrin and say nothing. He just said,
is that what he said?
He said nothing else.
Nothing. That is all I like. That is dancing on a pole.
Yeah.
He's the best. Wiggy's awesome.
Yeah.
Also one of like the first people I talked to is Bender's Battlefield.
Nice.
Lots of stuff. Let's say I enjoy trail running.
Nice. All right. What's the one bend that got away?
I almost bent a gold nail in iron mine pads. I got it to about, I don't remember. It was pretty close before I just couldn't do it anymore. And that was like on the end of my 2012 run. So that gold nail.
Nice. All right. Who's the strongest person you know? This could be in relation to bending or just whatever.
Strongest person I know. That's such a tough question, man. I know a lot of strong people.
Always stalls people.
That's probably is that a tough question for a lot of people you ask?
Yeah.
Because they're like, you're in this sport where you got to be really strong.
All different answers I've heard, just sometimes people that people have just met briefly, or then, someone said like his grandfather or whatever. It's there's no right or wrong answer here.
Right. Honestly, I would probably say, as far as just actually somebody that's done something that has been documented. I've met all those guys at the Arnold and stuff, but as far as just if I was going to say in a circle of people that I could call right now, watching Paul Knight squeeze a gripper is something else back in the day. But it just doesn't make sense to watch him just grab any number 3 and just smash it without even trying.
Wow.
This doesn't make sense.
All right. How about the best piece of advice you were given? Could be about bending or just life in general.
Another good question. I would say if we're going to stick with bending, I've talked to a couple other guys that do some bending. They've given me some tips, and aside from like keeping your wraps nice and tight, is what we were kind of talking about earlier. And this goes with just about anything. It's like, listen to your body and don't end up thinking, don't get overzealous and let a tendon snap off because you're like, I can probably do it or break a bone if it's applicable for what you're doing. So yeah, just listen to your body.
Nice. All right. And lastly, what we kind of talked about this before we started, but what's the funniest reaction a person has had when they find out you spend your time bending nails?
Man, that's such a loaded question, just because I don't know how many times I've been sitting in a corner having a cocktail with a buddy at a bar, and whether it's a girl or a guy, they're like, what else do you do for fun when you're not shooting pool? And it's like, I bend the nails. And they're like, what? just the reaction of them just being completely confused with what you're talking about that's just generally what's pretty hilarious. But I haven't had anything that stands out.
All right. In closing, who's someone you'd like to see me have on the show?
Someone I'd like to see have on the show. I'm not sure who you've already had on the show. I think as far as if you're looking for like people that aren't super big into it or haven't been into it, my buddy Stan, he picked up a lot of stuff quickly, and he's one of those people that's just super strong.
Yeah.
Without having to train a lot. So he might have insight for people that are starting.
You just did the red nail last year, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that when I first met him back in 2013, he's unbelievably naturally strong, and I saw him do so. I went, "Oh, this is not going to be hard for you once it clicks."
Yeah.
I told him once I showed him how to bend a 60 penny nail, he bent it the first time. Yeah. I said, if you don't bend a 60 penny nail here in the next couple of days, it's going to be like a few weeks. And he drives it. He has a trucking company, and that's the way it was. He just started smashing it. So he's just one of those freaks. Nice. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see a lot of different people on there, but he'd definitely be somebody.
Cool. Like to see. Yeah, I've watched some of his bends for sure. The ones on your site and a couple other ones. Right. All right. Tips and advice for beginner benders.
Well, after what you said about like wrapping, I've thought about it here as we've been speaking, and definitely the preparation of wrapping those pads and even breaking them in. Like these are they're just so loose. Like that's not what you want to do. You can do so much more once they get broken in, and then you can kind of know where you are. You can get a good baseline. You can't get a good baseline for what you can do off of inconsistent things like new wrap. So breaking in wraps, learning to wrap them the proper way. Somebody maybe needs to make a good video on it. It'd be a good idea. And I think double overhand bending is see, Nathan Hall and I both kind of have different opinions on this because he thinks that's the dangerous form of bending, most dangerous form. And I understand where he's coming from, because what he means is you're able to apply so much force that you might end up hurting something. Yeah. And I completely agree with it in that respect. But as far as getting people into it and getting them like really hooked on being able to like see progress, if you could teach them to do that correctly, I think that would be very beneficial, and that'd be a great thing to get people into doing some good double overhand style, showing them the good technique to where they go, oh, okay, I get it, instead of doing the whole I'm trying to limp wrist, like bend this, and that's the problem. I think some people do, and they just set it back down and they don't care. Whereas if they've been shown how to do it right, they might have been more into it. So
yeah, I have a few former guests that have submitted tip videos on double overhand, and like I said, Delmar hit up the wrapping video, much needed. So all this stuff is on the YouTube channel. If for some reason you're hearing this and you don't know my YouTube channel.
Right on.
All right. And all right, where can people find you on social media and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've got the website, thechallengedude.com. So I'm not super interactive on that site, not because I don't choose to be, just because I'm still trying to figure out how to manage it the best and keep it updated and keep everything else going. That's another reason why I haven't made it a little bit more complex than it is, with as far as just like cutting bars down, because I want to make sure when I do make the next step in whatever bar it is, which I plan on doing, cool. I want to make sure I'm capable of keeping up with everything to where you get your name up there very quickly, if if you buy a bar or whatever it is. Yeah. So thechallengedude.com. I pretty much have, there's the Challenge Dude on TikTok. I haven't really been putting up videos, and I just don't know that it's an avenue that I'm going to keep pursuing, just because I enjoy being able to do live feeds. I like being able to interactive live with people. I think it helps grow your channel, and if your channel is dedicated to doing something you enjoy, that will in turn help that grow. But if all I can do is post videos, I'm like, I could just do that on YouTube. Right. So at this point right now, it's kind of up in the air. Obviously I have the old YouTube channel. You can just see some old grainy videos from
Yeah,
earliest iPhones back, in 2008.
I've watched
Yeah,
a lot of them.
But yeah, right now, I mean, if you want to get into bending and you want to try to do some certs, even like I said, at bars, you can do barehanded, but it's actually the bar that I set up for women to do, and it's not too bad. That quarter-inch, 7-inch stainless bar. So, but yeah, that's where I'm at right now, man.
That's cool. All right, JT, I had a really good time talking to you, man. I'd like to have you back on in the future sometime, and that's it.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks a lot, brother.
All right, have a good rest of the night.
Peace.